Hi, everyone, and welcome to Page Valley Livin, episode 109. Today, we're taking on a very serious topic as we talk about the special election being held on April 21st of 2026 on the issue of redistricting and redrawing the political lines for the congressional districts in the Commonwealth of Virginia. The question on the ballot that voters will see is the following. Should the Constitution of Virginia be amended to allow the General Assembly to temporarily adopt new congressional districts to restore fairness in the upcoming elections while ensuring Virginia's standard redistricting process resumes for all future redistricting after the 2030 census? Voters will be able to vote yes or no. And we've got two representatives here from our local political parties. We've got Miles Morimoto, the chairman of the Page County Democratic Committee. We've got Chapman Good, the chair of the Page County Republican Committee. And they're going to be telling you why you should vote yes or no on this ballot question that's coming up in this special election again on April 21st. Before we go to our first break, we do want to give you a couple of basic voter information here about this. If you want more information on the proposed amendment, you can go to the Virginia Department of Elections website, which is at elections.virginia.gov. There's early voting that has already begun on March the 6th. You can go to the Page County Government Center at 103 South Court Street in Luray at the voter registrations office. Now, one change about that, if you voted early before, normally they have you on that ground floor where you can go around the back, go right in kind of what I call the basement or the ground floor. But this is going to be on the first level of the county government center in the voter registrar's office. So that is a change. Another change, that if you wait until election day and you are in District 1 or 4, normally they use the schools. In the Springfield district, they use Springfield Elementary. Voters in this special election will be voting at Page United Methodist Church. And in District 4, normally you would vote at Stanley Elementary School, but you're going to be voting at the Stanley Fire Hall. So two districts, District 1 and 4, polling changes there for Election Day. On Tuesday, April 21st, polls will be open 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that one change if you're doing early voting, which you can do up until April 17th. 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. They'll also be open at that location for early voting the two Saturdays before the actual election on April 11th and April 18th. We're going to repeat all of that information at the end of this show, but please know that we could probably talk about this issue for an hour or two. These gentlemen have plenty to say about the issue. It's something they can think about very deeply. I'm sure they've talked about it a lot with their fellow constituents, but we want to simply inform the voters a little bit here. We want you to have an idea of what you'll be voting about, what some of the implications are, and general voting information like we just went over. We are not going to come to any general conclusions. We are not going to solve any problems today, but we're going to just try to inform you, the voter, a little bit about what to expect in this special election. We'll get underway in just a few moments after first a word from our sponsor.
Whispering Pines Assisted Living is now accepting new admissions. Quality care at affordable rates, professionally trained staff, memory support, and short-term respite stays are all offered by Whispering Pines Assisted Living, powered by Valley Care Management, where home and heart meet. Call for a tour today on Leakesville Road in Luray or learn more at valleycaremanagement.com.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here with episode 109 of Page Valley Livin. We're here actually out at the Luray Caverns Airport today in their conference room, a very nice facility. If you haven't seen it, drop by. Even if you're not into airplanes and flying, this is a very nice facility. The county of Page and the town of Luray, very lucky to have it. But we're in the conference room today with Miles Morimoto, the chairman of the Page County Democratic Committee, Chapman Good, chairman of the Page County Republican Committee. And we are talking today about redistricting, the special election question that is on the ballot for April 21st Early voting began on March 6th. We will review again at the end of this video a couple of changes in districts and polling locations. But real quick, just to start out, I want to reread the ballot question. Should the Constitution of Virginia be amended to allow the General Assembly to temporarily adopt new congressional districts to restore fairness in the upcoming elections while ensuring Virginia's standard redistricting process resumes for all future redistricting after the 2030 census? That is the question on the ballot. Voters can vote yes or no, and these gentlemen are going to tell you whether you should vote yes or no and why. As we go along. Now, this is going to be not quite a debate format, but sort of. We're going to allow each side opening remarks, and then we're going to ask them specific questions and questions that they will both answer. And they will have opportunities to rebut the comments of their opponent here. So we're going to go through that, and we'll have two different segments with basically 3 rounds each. In this first segment, the first round is simply an opening statement for each side to kind of give their plea out to the general public. So we're going to start with Miles and the Democratic side, and I believe you want these folks to vote yes.
Yes.
All right, your floor.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Miles Morimoto, Chair of the Page County Democratic Committee. Thank you for Page Valley News for hosting this discussion. Thank you, Chapman Good, for providing the opposing view, and thank you for your military service.
Yes, sir.
So what is the redistricting referendum? It's the first question. And I will just say that while the redistricting referendum is a vote for new district voting maps in Virginia, make no mistake, this is a national referendum on stopping the power grab that Trump initiated. So vote yes on the referendum. In July of 2025, Trump pressured states to gerrymander their districts in order to win a majority of seats during the midterm elections in 2026. And the Republicans supported redistricting as long as it favored their party. Texas Republicans caved into Trump's pressure and voted to redistrict in order to gain seats in Congress without putting it up to a vote for voters. Other states, such as Ohio, Missouri, North Carolina, and Florida, piled on. The redistricting referendum is a temporary measure presented to voters of Virginia to address the assault on free and fair elections and a measured response to the pressure that Trump has put on states to redistrict without voter approval. The current system will be reinstated after the 2030 census. So, vote yes if you're worried about your job or business due to tariffs initiated by Trump, or if you're seeing higher prices at the gas pump, in your electric bill, and health care. If you're unhappy with the United States and how it's isolated itself from its closest allies around the world, and if you're upset about Trump starting the war in Iran without congressional approval, a yes vote will ensure the actions by the Trump administration that have caused these conditions can be addressed and hold elected officials accountable. So vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Miles. And now for the counterpoint here and telling us why we should vote no, Mr. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Arrington. And I appreciate you putting this on so we can get some information out to the voters. That's really helpful. Mr. Morimoto, I appreciate you coming out and so we can have a good discussion about this. We really have to vote no, okay? The president asked Texas to do a thing, asked North Carolina or Florida to do a thing. Those states are not Virginia. Virginia draws its own maps. Now, we really want to be represented, right? Everybody wants to be represented, and everybody wants to have some sort of fair representation. Here in Virginia, we already have a bipartisan map where there are 6 Democrats and 5 Republicans, which is very close to how the state has voted overall in the most recent elections. For example, in 2024, 52% of Virginians voted for Kamala Harris. About 7%, a little more than that, voted for President Trump. That's close to 6-5. Fair. All the Democrats are getting their say in the House of Representatives, and the Republicans are getting their say, a proportional say, which is what we should have. Also, the voters were polled about this in 2020, and they voted overwhelmingly. 65.7% voted, I myself included, that we should have a bipartisan committee who can give us lines that are close to what would be considered bipartisan. That was passed by a Republican House and then a Democrat House. That's the nature of bipartisanship. It worked. And now that the Democrats have control of the House, they want to grab 4 more seats in the House of Representatives and our federal representation in Congress. I think that's wrong. I think that is an obvious power grab and not necessarily what we should be doing for Virginia. So I would ask that you vote no.
Thank you, gentlemen. And I just want to let folks know that I know both of these gentlemen. I talked to them beforehand about being cordial. We're off to a good start. We're off to a real good start because I know this is a very contentious issue on both sides. I'm going to now direct a question to the Democrats, and I'm going to say, if the end result it takes us from 6-5 to 10-1, then how does that qualify, at least in face value, as being restoring fairness in this election? It seems to be a contradiction of terms.
Well, again, if you frame this in national election context, and what is fair about Trump trying to gerrymander and order states pretty much to take over voting, and what we see in Texas, for instance, where voters don't even get a chance to vote on it, that the legislature has gone off and gerrymandered the voting districts for, I think it's about 4 or 5 additional seats. And Democrats are not going to sit back and just roll over on this. We are going to fight, and we're going to draw the line on what's fair at a national level. And if he wants to try to stack the deck against Democrats in Congress, then we are going to fight back. And this is a pivotal election now with this redistricting. So we will do everything we can to make sure that we even up the numbers.
Okay. Any rebuttal?
Yes, I would say that, one, we as Virginians want to have our representation here. We're a collection of states. That's what we are. And each state gets to decide how it should be represented. Currently, we have this bipartisan map. The fact that Texas has redistricted, that's Texas's issue. And we shouldn't look at this as just one enormous body politic. That's not the case. It's a body politic that consists of 50 different types of voters, different places, different states, different communities that all have different decisions that they have to make. And we are all now represented in a mostly bipartisan way. Of course, we're never going to be able to split it perfectly. That's just the way it is. So I don't think it's fair to say, oh, some other state did it, so now Virginia should do that too.
Thank you. And just to let the audience know too, each side has 2 minutes to answer a question, 1 minute for a rebuttal, and I'll offer you one last rebuttal if you want to rebut anything he just said.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, on a national level, what we have going on is kind of an emergency status of the condition of a president coming in on a national election saying he wants to take over voting. He wants to take over with the SAVE Act. He wants to go off and basically gerrymander Democrats out. This is an emergency situation. So I cannot see how saying that every state does its own thing when somebody at the top is coming in and laying their footprint on everybody, saying, no, this is how it's going to work. And what we're seeing right now is that is happening in other states, and Virginia has to stand up against that in order to represent everybody fairly. And I will also add that we don't seem to see much representation out of Ben Klein. He will not meet or have open houses, and he pretty much rubber stamps anything that Trump says.
Thank you. We're going to go on now to our next question, and I'm going to direct this to the Republicans here. I in some ways, I feel like we could take the word gerrymandering and redistricting, and I think those words are almost interchangeable, because I think ever since 150 years ago or whatever it's been that we started redistricting, that's really what it was. The controlling party drew the lines in their favor. This is nothing new. So the question I would ask the Republicans is, if the roles were reversed, Wouldn't you do the exact same thing?
I would argue no, because in 2019, the House of Delegates, which was controlled by the Republicans at the time, well, at the General Assembly, which was controlled by the Republicans at the time, voted on the constitutional amendment that we have now. And in Virginia, as some people may have heard because of all that's going on with the redistricting, whenever you have a constitutional amendment, there has to be an intervening election between the General Assembly passing an amendment. So one General Assembly has to pass it, the voters have to get to weigh in on a new General Assembly, and then that General Assembly has to pass the exact same language for an amendment before it can be put to the people. So in 2019, when Republicans were in control, they voted for a bipartisan redistricting commission, which is what we have now. That's the amendment the voters voted on in 2020. And then in the 2019 election, Democrats took control of the General Assembly, and they voted on the exact same amendment. This was a bipartisan effort here. And then that amendment was put to the people. So when Republicans had the ability, they said, nope, we're gonna vote for this bipartisan way of doing things. Because we run into this situation that frankly I think we're facing now, and that if the voters of Virginia do pass this referendum, is when does it stop? When do we stop? When are we going to do this thing where each time a party gets in control, they just say, well, the Democrats did it last time, so now we're doing it. And then the Democrats get in control, and they're going to say, well, the Republicans did it last time, so now we're doing it. And then we're just going to spend every 2 years redistricting Virginia. No one's going to know who their representatives are. No one's going to know where their districts are. People are not going to be in communities that have similar interests as a new map would be. So I don't know that we would do it that way, and I think given the opportunity that Republicans had in 2019, they didn't do it that way.
1 minute for a rebuttal.
Democrats had offered to really eliminate gerrymandering, and until this whole thing with Trump came in, and basically he put the pressure on, thinking that he could win by doing that. It's pretty similar to everything he's doing, like with Iran. Go in, no forethought of what could happen in the future, and no way to really deal with the battle once it occurs. So we are now in the battle part, but it's not like we asked for it, and we didn't, but it happened, so we can't have to respond. And that's really kind of why we're sitting here today.
If you want it, I'll allow you 1 minute.
Sure. I think that the response that we're talking about from the Democrats is, they say essentially that the president started this. I don't know that that's accurate, and the reason I say that is because, for example, Massachusetts. 42% of people in Massachusetts vote Republican, yet there are 0 Republican representatives from Massachusetts. Why is that? Because the state has been under Democratic control for a long time, and so gerrymandered that the representative districts are created in a way that a Republican cannot get elected. So gerrymandering, you're right, has been going on for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of blue states, and certainly I won't argue that there aren't any red states, but certainly there are a lot of blue states who have already gerrymandered all of their seats or the bulk of their seats so that no Republican can ever get elected. So we're already there, and that's why I would really argue that we stop doing it now. And let's stop with Virginia, which has been, Virginia has led the way for a lot of things in this country with respect to government, and I think we can do that now.
Thank you. It does have, redistricting has quite a long history. Gerrymandering has a long history. Go back to 19th century political cartoonist Thomas Nast, who drew the lizard snake-like object to illustrate how some of the strange districts were drawn. Now this is the last question of our first segment. This is for both of you. I guess since Mr. Good just spoke, I'll start with Miles here. In 2020, and this is something you just referenced, in 2020 a bipartisan group assigned to handle redistricting couldn't reach an agreement. They actually disbanded the committee and then tried to come back with another little group. But ultimately the Supreme Court wound up deciding on the final maps. Do you think this is something that should be left to the courts as a supposedly impartial, neutral entity, or am I not understanding the process right? Or do you think that would be a way to get away from some of the the grab of the political parties if we just left it to the courts?
My sense on it right now, not that I'm an expert in this area, but that one, the Supreme Court is not an expert in districts and the maps. But beyond that, I would say that the Supreme Court did allow this vote to go through. Once the vote goes through, they'll still have another chance to evaluate, is my understanding, but then they would be going against not only the General Assembly, but also the voters if they said no. So I don't see how they have a role other than saying, is this a right decision to do? Not, hey, why don't we go off and cut up the territories and districts like this and that. That I don't see.
Okay. Same question. Basically, should we just leave this up to the courts?
Courts throughout history, or at least our history, have made a very concerted effort to stay out of redistricting. They have said, the United States Supreme Court has said many times that this is a political question that needs to be answered by the political branches, and they are not a political branch. With the way our separation of government works, I would be very leery to just have the Supreme Court step in whenever it's all fit, because again, as Miles pointed out, they're not an expert in redistricting, they're not an expert in political issues. That's not what they do. They interpret the law and apply it to the facts. But what we have now, our bipartisan committee, which you laid out, they had two maps, and they couldn't decide which one they wanted. And they couldn't get, the bipartisan committee is made up of 8 members of the General Assembly and 8 lay people, 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans on each side of that. And they're able to, they draw the map. They had 2 maps. They couldn't figure out which one they wanted. But the statute that goes along with the amendment that was passed in 2020 lays out that if the bipartisan commission cannot decide, it goes to the General Assembly for a vote. They don't change it. They can vote on it. They couldn't pass it, so then it goes to the Supreme Court to decide which map we're going to pick from. Okay. I think that's a reasonable way for us to sort of separate the political power from the redistricting. I don't think it should just be up to the courts. I think that would be a bad idea. But for them to say, okay, we've gotten close, and we're going to be the final decider on these maps that are close enough but can't quite figure it out. I think that's a reasonable way to do it, certainly at the state level.
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We're going to close out our first segment here, and we'll be back with 2 or 3 more questions on this topic of redistricting. We'll continue here in just a moment after another word from our sponsor.
Hawksbill Assisted Living in Luray is now accepting new admissions. Hawksbill Assisted Living, powered by Valley Care Management, offers quality care at affordable rates, professionally trained staff, and veterans aid and attendance. Come visit Hawksbill Assisted Living, located near the beautiful Hawksbill Greenway in Luray. Call for a tour today or learn more at valleycaremanagement.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to episode 109 of Page Valley Living, a very special episode today to talk about redistricting, a very important issue in front of all of the voters of the Commonwealth of Virginia. In continuing the conversation here, I'm going to direct this question to the Republican side. In 2010, the Federal Voting Rights Act was established. It went to the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, and they ultimately said that the majority party sets the lines, which is basically the way it has always been. It really wasn't a major surprise or change. But the GOP was in control at the time. They were thrilled with the decision, and they redrew the lines, of course, in their favor, as would be expected. Now, this has always been the way, the majority party drawing the lines. I want to say, what is any different? I would ask the Republicans who oppose this, what is any different now about this situation and the Democrats trying to redraw the lines?
Sure, and I think that's a great question, but the answer is 65.7, I'm going to be accurate, of Virginians, or percent of Virginians voted on the amendment in 2020. So you're right, 2010, Republicans redraw the lines and they're heavily favored towards Republicans. But when put to the voters said, we don't want to do this anymore. We're tired of this back and forth. We're tired of whoever's in control gets to draw the lines. And they were very clear about that. In fact, every county in Virginia, except Arlington, voted in a majority for that amendment. 65.7% of Virginians. And Arlington voted 45% for the county, voted for that amendment. So when the voters got to weigh in on it back in 2020, they said, sure, the Supreme Court can say whatever it wants. Again, it's the legal branch, right? It's not the political branches, and it's certainly not the voters. When the voters were able to weigh in, they said, we're going to stop. Virginia's going to be different. We're going to establish a bipartisan committee, and we're going to draw this thing in a fair way, which represents as close as possible to what Virginia is made up of, which right now, 6-5. Of course, the Democrats have more seats, and that's reasonable in this situation because there are more Democrat voters in Virginia as it stands, and that's been borne out through several of the most recent elections, except for the 2020 election for Governor Youngkin. But it's borne out that there are more Democrats voting in Virginia than there are Republicans right now, so that's fair, and I think we should keep it that way. And the fact that the Supreme Court said that the majority gets to draw it, that's fine under the law. But then the voters of Virginia changed the law in Virginia. They amended the Constitution and said, let's not do that anymore.
Okay. You have a minute for rebuttal. No rebuttal? Okay. All right. We will move right on. And this question being directed to the Democratic side of the table. The fact that this involves or requires a constitutional amendment, which it bothers a lot of folks. They think that is a very big deal. And I guess my question is, shouldn't that be a legislative tool that is reserved only for the most absolute needed moments? In other words, we don't want to go making 2 or 3 amendments to the Constitution every year. So shouldn't that be reserved for very, very special moments?
I don't know if there's ever been a special moment larger than what we have right now under Donald Trump and the chaos and problems that he's caused. What we have right now is a situation where we don't even know day to day what our lives are going to be like, what the market's going to look like, whether we're going to have oil due to the Straits of Hormuz. Every day it's a different crisis. Every day we're having a problem with the Justice Department, and we can't trust the Justice Department anymore. It's an arm of Donald Trump. And we've got ICE as a paramilitary Gestapo going after people. This is an emergency. I cannot think of any time in history that we've had such a problem that we have to go off and invoke whatever we can to stop this problem. It's that large.
Okay. All right. I'll offer you a minute for rebuttal if you want it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I would say when you have the problems that Mr. Morimoto, that the Democrats seem to feel like they have, and we have the lines that we have now, the way to solve that problem is to convince the voters that they're not being represented appropriately. Go into the districts and convince them that you should vote for the Democrat who's going to stop President Trump from doing what they feel like he's doing that he shouldn't be, to change the way our government is going if they feel like it's a problem. That's how we do it. We don't redraw the lines. We convince the voters that they're not being represented appropriately, and that they should vote that person out if they're not being satisfied or not being represented the way that satisfies them. So that would be, I don't think we redraw the lines. I think we go in and say, you should vote for someone different. That's how you change it.
Okay. And I'll offer you 1 minute to rebut that.
Well, if the situation nationwide was that Trump didn't step in and ask for redistricting in other areas in order to favor Republicans and the majority in Congress and to keep Mike Johnson in place, then I would probably agree, but that's not the situation we're at right now. And with the lapdogs that we have as far as Republican representatives that will do anything that Trump wants, at this point, it behooves us to fight with everything we've got to make sure that that doesn't occur.
Okay, very well. We have 2 questions left before closing statements. These last 2 questions are somewhat similar in nature. Let's see, I posed the last one to the Democratic side. I will start here, but it's going to be the same question for both of you. Excuse me. The question is, will we ever get back to a political environment where there is really hope for bipartisan compromise? Because there seems to be an environment of winner take all. That seems to be the attitude, particularly in Washington, and trickling down from there. And that's persisted for at least a decade, I'd say maybe going back a quarter century. So can we ever get back to the days of Tip O'Neill and John Warner, or have we simply just gone too far to ever go back?
I think it's certainly possible. I think that this country has been through some really traumatic times, that our government has been so partisan, and we've been able to come back. At one point, we fought a civil war over it because we couldn't figure out a way to compromise over a very contentious issue. We've been through this before. I'm not suggesting that we should go to war, and we're not suggesting we should go that far, and I don't think we're anywhere close to that.
Right.
But to say that we've been through this before, we've had the Civil War. The war in Vietnam was a very contentious issue. There have been other times where we've just been on the opposite sides, and somehow, cooler heads have prevailed, and we've been able to figure it out. And that's the beauty of our system, and I think that system will continue. We have new ways of getting information, social media, digital news, all sorts of things that our system, our body politic, our representatives, our politicians at large are trying to figure out how to influence and how to get their message across. And it's becoming very chaotic, absolutely. But I think that as those things settle in and as we get more comfortable with the way things happen, that maybe that some of that chaos will settle down, and that we'll get back to, our ability to have conversations like he and I are sitting here having, right? We're going back and forth, and this is great. And I think we can get back to that. And frankly, I think at the local level, it's probably not nearly as bad as it is at the upper level. But I think it certainly exists. I think it has to. I think that's the beauty of our system, that we can get back to a compromise that everybody can live with. Thank you.
And I would pose the same question to you. Can we get back to those days of Tip O'Neill and John Warner and even Mr. Gingrich, kind of reaching across the aisle and compromising, or have we dug the trenches too deep?
No, I think we can, and I think that the commonality between all of us in terms of making a better community happen, bringing resources to the needs that we are seeing, and addressing problems that are common is something that we all want and we all want to work towards. And I think that both parties do work towards that in its own certain ways. I think the problem where we're running into right now, and it's not, I would even wear a Republican hat if I believed in the kind of things that was going on. However, when I see benefits getting cut, when I see the types of things that are being slashed, and the types of, it's really become a billionaire club versus the rest of us. Everybody stars, but some people are going to have, that economy where they can live great. And we have to bridge on common points. And I think that as we start to work on these kind of common points and common needs, we will find solutions together, okay? And that's something we're very motivated about. The problem we're having right now is when we see all the slashing going on, and the people who are at the top collecting billions of dollars and seeing everybody else, starve, that doesn't work for us. And hopefully that message will get across on a bipartisan basis, because there's so much need here. There's a high degree of things such as drug abuse, a high sense of, I think, of people on, aid and so forth. So yeah, we believe in helping people, and that's one of the things I think will help ultimately bridge that bipartisan conversation.
Very good, very good. One last question, and I think in today's political rhetoric, labels get thrown around a lot, and I think a lot of people like to use broad scopes for, you think that way, well, I'm going to throw this label on you or that label. And I believe that all politics are local. I believe that they all come back to local in our daily lives. So that's what I want to focus here on this final question before I let you have your last plea to the voters. And since all politics are local, and most everyone would like to see the rhetoric and the political tone sort of calm down, bring the temperature down a little bit, I want each of you to say something nice about the other local political party Not the folks in Congress, not DC, or not even Richmond, but the people that we have to sit across the aisle from in Page County. And since Mr. Chapman is going to start off the closing arguments, I'm going to let you have the first word on this. Say something nice about the Page County Republican Committee.
I think the Republicans in general are good people. I have no problems with them personally. I think that many of the people I know are very nice people, and they are helpful in working with and trying to solve problems and bring aid to those in need, et cetera. And I've seen that firsthand. So I think that, you know, in general, it's not a question of are these bad people or anything like that. It's just that when we get into these policy issues that's coming down from like the national level, it does affect all of us. And we're getting into some real major kind of contention around that because we don't like to see the kind of people getting hurt the way they're getting hurt. Businesses, you know, people in their jobs, you know, the assistants, all of that getting decimated. And I don't see, you know, that that's a benefit to anybody. So obviously, you know, as long as we're working towards those kind of common goals, I think the Republicans have a heart somewhere, and, you know, we can meet somewhere in the middle to help make that work.
Okay, very well. Same question to you. All politics are local, so I want you to say something, excuse me, nice about the Page County Democratic Committee.
Well, I would say that the Democrats in Page County have never said any harsh words to me. You know, I'm also the elected Commonwealth attorney. Obviously, I'm not here in that role, but I get it from all walks of life that they come up and say thank you for the things that I do. They know I'm a Republican. I ran as a Republican, so we can get across. So certainly at the local level, that we can get across the bipartisan lines, and I think the Democrats here do a great job of that. I also say on election day, we were outside the fire hall, and I was standing there as the chair with with my people at our tent for they were supporting the Republicans, of course, and of course there was a Democratic tent right there next to it, and the gentleman there came over and said, "Hey, I think you're Chapman Good, aren't you?" And he shook my hand and introduced himself and said, "Hey, it's really great talking to you." We stood there and talked for 10 or 15 minutes, you know, and Mr. Morimoto, we hadn't met before. He comes in. You know, before all this started, first thing he did, shake my hand, say hello, nice to meet you. I mean, that's the kind of that's the beginning of good conversations that we can have that solve these problems in a way that everybody can come away with something, right? Government is about compromise. Not everybody's going to be happy. That's just the way it is. Some people are going to be very happy. Some people are going to be very upset. Some people are going to be in the middle. But these kinds of conversations and that kind of introduction and greeting is how you get off on the right foot and say, hey, you know, let's come together. Let's figure out a common ground. And that's how it has to start. And I appreciate that.
I think generally everyone, if you really, really boil it down, everybody generally wants the same types of things. We just can't agree on the route to get there.
You know. Sure. Yeah.
So here we are. We're coming to a close here. This is going to be the closing arguments from both sides. The Republicans are going to talk to you about why you should vote no on this resolution or this ballot question that's going to be on the ballot here with on April 21st or any time before then with early voting. And of course, the Democrats will be telling you why you should vote yes. Since we started with the Democrats in the opening statement, we're going to hear from the Republicans first on why you should vote no here in the closing.
Thank you, sir. My question to you and all out there watching it would be, do you want to be represented? You want to be coalesced into a district of people that have similar interests or not? So, for example, the 6th district, Ben Klein represents the 6th district now, runs from essentially the border with West Virginia and Maryland all the way down to Roanoke. That's the valley. Extends maybe a little bit further. That's the valley. We have similar interests. Do we all believe the same thing? Absolutely not. But we have similar interests. We have rural interests that we can all sort of say that guy can probably help us in Congress or represent my interests in Congress. This new map that's redistricted, people of Page County would be in the same district as the people that live in Arlington on the DC border. I don't think that those people have similar interests. The current map, that's its own district. And there's another district just outside of that of people that have similar interests. Those people are urban. They live in an urban environment. They have urban concerns. We are not. We're rural. We live out here in the farmland. They don't share our interests, yet that's who would be controlling the vote for who's going to represent you. So, everything else aside, do you want to be put together with a set of people, a group of people that have similar interests as you, or do you want to redraw the maps so that you're not put together with those people? You're represented by someone from a long ways away. And it's not just Page County. That's not the only one. In the new map, the people of Powhatan and the people of Augusta would be put together in a district that runs all the way up to the DC border. In fact, Fairfax County, who I feel bad for, would have 5 different congressional representatives in Congress. I think that's a little too far. So let's vote no and keep the map as we have it now.
And before I go to your closing, I just wanted to make one kind of a clarification point, and I want both of you to correct me if I'm wrong. Currently, we are in the 6th district, congressional district. If the new maps go through, we would be in the 7th. Is that right?
No, the 11th.
The 11th?
I believe that's correct.
The 11th. Okay, we would go from the 6th district to the 11th district. Okay, because I know at one time we were in the 7th, and one time when we had Eric Cantor, at one time we were in the 10th when we had Frank Wolf, I believe, and so it's been all over the place. So just for clarification, we would be going from the 6th to the 11th. Okay, I just wanted to, that's neither for or against, that's just a clarification. And we'll hear your closing arguments now of why folks should vote yes.
Okay. Well, thank you again to Page Valley News for hosting this discussion, and thank you, Chapman, for providing your point of view.
Yes, sir.
The redistricting referendum is a national referendum on stopping the power grab that Trump initiated. So vote yes on the referendum. Democrats warned that Trump and Republicans that we would fight fire with fire, and the referendum, like the war in Iran, Trump knows how to get the war started, but he doesn't know how to end it. So vote yes if you're worried about the price of gas, and that it will even go higher. Vote yes because you need a Congress that will stop this war, and the current one won't do it. If you know that Trump's tariffs cost you money, then vote yes. If you're worried about your jobs and your businesses due to tariffs, vote yes. If you're a federal worker who's lost his job to Musk and Doge, vote yes. If you think Trump has disgraced the White House, vote yes. And if you're upset about the lack of accountability and corruption that's on display every day in the area of the Trump administration, vote yes. And if you want Congress to find its balls again, vote yes. Thank you.
All right, very well. Okay, I thank both of you gentlemen for your cordial interaction, being here today. I do want to review for the folks at home, once again, a couple of basics about this special election. The special election day is on April the 21st of 2026 here. It is about the redistricting issue. You can vote yes or no about whether there should be an amendment to the Constitution of Virginia to allow a redistricting in between what we normally do with the census on the 10-year marks, like the last one we did on 2020. Are we going to allow that to be done right now and then go back to the normal process in 2030? If you'd like some more information on the proposed amendment, that can be found at the Virginia Department of Elections website, elections.virginia.gov. That's elections.virginia.gov. Early voting began on March the 6th. It's being held at the Page County Government Center in the voter registration office that's located at 103 South Court Street in Luray. And don't forget, if you have voted there early before, normally you go around back and go in the what I call the basement level or ground level. This is going to be on that first floor level, main level, where the voter registration office is. If you need assistance from them, either getting in the building, or they could bring a ballot out to you at your car. If you have a physical disability or something, you can call them at 540-743-3986. That's also if you need maybe more information from the registrar. That's 540-743-3986. Early voting is going to happen Monday through Friday through April 17th, and also on 2 Saturdays right up before the election on the 11th and the 18th. during basically normal business hours, 8:30 to 4:30, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. The Saturday hours, 8:30 to 5. On Election Day, one last reminder, if you're in District 1 or District 4, if you're in the Springfield District, school is going to be in session, so they're not going to be able to use Springfield Elementary. You will be voting at Page United Methodist Church on 340 North there. In District 4, if you're in the Newport District, you usually vote at Stanley Elementary. Again, school will be in session, so you'll be voting at the Stanley Fire Hall along with District 3. They're going to have two separate lines for District 3 and 4, and the polls will be open on Election Day, April 21st from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Well, we hope you've learned a little something today, maybe got informed on the issue of redistricting, a little history about it, and what a yes or no vote will mean on April 21st. I want to thank Chapman Good for being here, representing the Republicans, Miles Morimoto representing the Democrats. I want to thank both of you gentlemen for joining us here at the Luray Caverns Airport, a beautiful little conference room to meet in. And we want to tell you, whether you vote yes or no, just make sure that you get out and exercise your right to vote between now and April 21st. Be a part of that process, that democratic process. If you like today's episode, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Page Valley News. We want to thank Eleanor Arrington for all of her work behind the camera today, keeping that timer, keeping these guys in check, and in the editing room as well. And as we end each and every episode of Page Valley Livin', make sure you go down to the Page County Animal Shelter and help one of our furry friends find a forever home. For Chapman Good and Miles Morimoto, I'm Randy Arrington for the Luray Caverns Airport, saying get out there and vote and enjoy that Page Valley living.